I was never supposed to be at that Christmas party. I wasn't on the guest list. I hadn't been invited. In fact, I'd been very specifically, very deliberately told I wasn't welcome, told in words that still made my chest tight when I replayed them. But there I was, standing in the middle of my brother's living room on Christmas Eve, in my jeans and wool coat, while 15 people in designer clothes stared at me in complete silence. And outside, through the bay window, orange and yellow lights were strobing across the snow. The kind of lights that don't come from Christmas decorations. My sister-in-law had just dropped a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Shrimp cocktail was scattered across her pristine white rug. 2 investors were already reaching for their coats. And my brother, standing there in a velvet tuxedo jacket that probably cost more than my first car, was looking at me like I had just burned his entire world down. Maybe I had. But to understand how we got to that moment, to understand what I did, and why I did it, and why I would do it again without hesitation, you have to go back 3 weeks. To a sofa. To a bottle of painkillers. To a phone call I never saw coming. I was lying on my sofa when he called. 3 days earlier, I'd had an emergency appendectomy, not a smooth one. Complications, a minor infection, a recovery that the doctors said would take weeks. I was pale, weak, and moving like every step cost me something. I'd texted Chris before the surgery and again when I got home. His wife Julia sent back a thumbs up emoji. Chris sent nothing. So when his name finally lit up my screen, I actually felt relieved. Maeve. Listen, I don't have a lot of time. His voice was crisp. Energetic. Street noise behind him. No, how are you feeling? No, are you okay? Julia and I are finalizing the Christmas Eve dinner list. Caterers are coming in an hour. I told him I wasn't sure what I could bring since I couldn't cook yet, but I'd ordered the vintage wines Julia liked. A heavy pause. Yeah, about that. That fake sympathetic tone, the one he always used right before doing something selfish. We're making changes to the guest list. Very high-end. Julia's invited the VP of marketing from her firm. I've got 2 potential investors coming. I can just sit quietly in the corner, I said, shifting and wincing at the pull in my side. Chris, being alone during recovery has been hard. I really just need to be around family. He sighed. Impatient. Maeve, this isn't a family potluck. It's a networking event disguised as Christmas. Appearance is everything. And frankly, you don't fit the aesthetic. Julia is stressed about impressions, and having her sister-in-law there looking like a sick ghost who hasn't brushed her hair in a week isn't the image we're projecting. It's no place for losers. You'd just embarrass yourself. The room tilted. You're uninviting me from Christmas. Because I had surgery and I don't wear designer clothes. I'm uninviting you because you bring the energy down, he snapped. We're trying to level up. You're stagnant. Stay home, rest, pop your pills. We'll send leftovers if there are any. He hung up. I sat there holding the phone, staring at my reflection in the black screen. Pale. Dark circles. Hollow eyes. He was right about one thing, I looked wrecked. But those words just kept echoing. No place for losers. You're stagnant. The tears came before I could stop them. For a while I just let them. I cried for the brother I thought I had. I cried for the family I'd been clinging to since our parents died 5 years ago, both of them in a car accident, leaving Chris and me with nothing but each other. But as the painkillers kicked in and the shock wore off, something else started to build. Slow and quiet. Deep in my chest. Not sadness. Something colder. I shuffled to the kitchen to make tea. While the kettle boiled, I opened Instagram. Julia had posted a story 10 minutes earlier, their living room decked out in gold and white. A massive tree touching the vaulted ceiling. Classical music in the background. The caption, prepping for the biggest night of the year. Exclusive guest list only. High life. Success. No negativity. No negativity. Code 4 no Maeve. I zoomed in. Saw the leather sectional I'd helped them pick. The bay window. My nephew Finn running past the camera in his Whitmore Preparatory Academy uniform. My thumb hovered. Chris thought he knew what kind of woman I was. Struggling. Scraping by. Writing little stories for people on the internet, too timid for the real world. He'd forgotten, or chosen to forget, the night he showed up at my door 3 years ago, soaked from the rain, eyes red, telling me he was going to lose everything. Here's what you need to know about Chris and me, and I'll keep it short because the important part isn't the history. It's one specific night. Chris is 4 years older. Growing up, he was the golden boy, quarterback, prom king, the kind of guy who could charm a teacher into changing a grade and make everyone in the room feel like they were the lucky one just for knowing him. I was the quiet one, the bookworm, the sister who stayed in the library while he collected trophies. When our parents died, car accident, 5 years ago, both of them gone inside of a second, the inheritance was split 50-50. I invested mine. Bought a modest house. Built a ghostwriting business where the name Sinclair never appeared on anything. My rates were high, my lifestyle was invisible. Nobody knew what I made. I didn't talk about it. Chris burned through his half in 18 months. Failed luxury brand. Failed tech incubator. A house he absolutely could not afford because he genuinely believed that if you looked successful long enough, you'd become it. And then one Tuesday night, it all caught up with him. I remember it was raining. Hard. I was at my kitchen island with a cup of tea when the knock came. I opened the door and there he was, soaked through, eyes red, holding a glass of scotch he'd apparently brought from his own car because he needed something in his hands. He didn't say hello. He just said, "I'm going to lose everything. Credit cards maxed. Mortgage 3 months behind." Julia, who had grown up wealthy and had zero intention of ever being anything else, was talking about taking Finn and Isla to her parents' estate in Connecticut. He was going to lose his kids, his house, his marriage, all of it, inside of the same month. "Please," he said, grabbing my hand across the island. "You're the only one I can trust." Finn was 7. Isla was 5. I thought about their faces. I said yes. We made a private deal. I paid the school tuition and the car lease directly, straight to the school, straight to the dealership, so the money couldn't disappear into another venture. He'd stabilize, get serious, pay me back eventually. He never paid back a single dollar. And slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice it happening, the gratitude turned into entitlement. They stopped saying thank you when I picked up the kids. Chris started making little comments at family dinners. "It's cute that you write little stories. When are you going to get into the real business world?" I bit my tongue every time. Told myself he was just insecure. That it was hard for a man like Chris to accept help from his little sister. I made excuses for him for 3 years. And then he called me a loser from a busy street corner while I was 3 days out of surgery. I opened my banking app. 3 scheduled transfers. $3,200 monthly, Finn and Isla tuition, Whitmore prep. $850 monthly, Julia lease, Lexus SUV. $500 monthly, family support, groceries. Nearly $5,000 a month, for 3 years. While he told people he'd covered it all with his bonuses. I thought about the kids. They'll suffer if you do this. I sat with that honestly. And then I thought about what Chris was teaching them, that their aunt was lesser because she drove a Honda. That appearances are God. That love is transactional. If I kept paying, I wasn't protecting Finn and Isla. I was funding the lie that would eventually damage them. I tapped the first transfer. "Are you sure you want to cancel? This action cannot be undone." Yes. Transfer canceled. Second one. The Lexus. Cancel. Third. The grocery money. Cancel. The silence in the house felt completely different now. Not lonely. Final. But I wasn't done. I pulled up my bank statements going back 3 years and built a spreadsheet. Every transfer. Every emergency loan. Every vet bill for their purebred dog. Every networking dinner Chris had forgotten his wallet for. Total, $150,000. That was a house. That was a retirement fund. That was a life, given freely, out of love, while they called me stagnant. I did some digging on Chris's new venture. His LLC, Stratford Capital Group, was active but not in good standing. Hadn't filed his annual report. Then I messaged a literary agent I knew and asked about Celeste, the VP Julia was trying to impress. The reply, total shark. Obsessed with status. If you're not wearing the right label, you don't exist to her. So that was it. They weren't just being cruel. They were terrified of being exposed as frauds, and I was the most visible proof of their reality. The sister in jeans. The reminder that the money wasn't real. I called Whitmore Prep Admissions office. The account was current through November. December payment due on the 10th. And there was an outstanding balance of $2,500 for a ski trip, already overdue. Chris had told me that trip was covered by a bonus. He had lied. Again. I'm calling to inform you I will no longer be the payer on this account, I said. All future billing goes directly to my brother. Please remove my contact information entirely. The tuition was due in 3 days. The ski trip was already overdue. Chris was busy tasting canapes. Then I called my lawyer Dana. Told her about the $150,000. Told her I had texts where Chris promised repayment. We can file a formal demand letter, she said. It'll freeze him. If he tries to refinance or sell, he'll have to deal with you first. Do it, I said. And Dana, send it to arrive on Christmas Eve. A pause. Christmas Eve, Maeve? He wanted high-end, I said. Nothing says high-end like a legal courier. One more thing. Chris had foolishly shared a Google Doc guest list with me weeks earlier, back when I was still invited. I still had access. I looked at the names. Then I found a post on their neighborhood Facebook group, selling 2021 Lexus SUV. Lease takeover. Immaculate condition. Growing family needs more space. Julia was already trying to offload the lease before the repo company came. Growing family was a lie. She was scrambling. Then a DM arrived from a mother of one of Finn's classmates. She'd heard a rumor Finn might not be returning next term. Her son was devastated. I typed back carefully, there are some financial restructuring issues in my brother's household. I'm no longer handling the tuition. Send. The Whisper network of elite school parents would do the rest. By Christmas Eve, everyone on that guest list would know the winners were broke. The fallout hit fast. Chris called on December 10th at 10 in the morning. I let it ring twice, then called back. What? Flat. What did you do? Full panic. Voice cracking. The school called, the payment bounced. They said if it's not paid by 5 o'clock today, the kids are unenrolled for spring. Did your bank screw up? No, I said, sipping my coffee. I canceled it. Silence. Why? Because I'm a loser, Chris. Remember? No place for losers. Losers don't pay for private school, winners do. Since you're such a winner now, I figured you didn't need my stagnant money. You're punishing the kids because I hurt your feelings? I'm stepping back. You said I don't fit the aesthetic. So neither does my money. You can't treat me like trash in private and use me like an ATM in public. It's $3,200, I don't have that sitting around, I'm liquidating assets for the business launch. Then maybe don't buy a $500 tree topper, I said. Or ask your investors. He screamed about ruining Christmas. I told him I'd also cancel the Lexus payment. He said something I won't repeat. I hung up. Julia called 10 minutes later. Controlled voice. Reasonable tone. Just turn the payments back on and you can come to Christmas. We'll make space. Put a chair at the end of the table. I laughed. You'll put a chair. Julia, you think I'm doing this to get back into your party? Then what do you want? An apology? Fine, I'm sorry Chris was rude. Now fix the tuition. If Finn gets kicked out of Whitmore Prep, we'll be the laughing stock of the club. And there it was. The club, I said quietly. Not Finn's education. The club. Appearances matter, Maeve. We are building a brand. Then start projecting a way to pay for it, I said. The Bank of Maeve is permanently closed. Chris texted in cycles for 2 days, begging 1 hour, threatening to sue me for breach of verbal contract the next. I screenshotted everything. Then came Aunt Gloria, calling to tell me Chris had told everyone I was unstable, on painkillers, acting out of jealousy. Did he mention who's been paying the tuition for 3 years? I asked. Ask him why he doesn't have $3,000 available. I blocked her without waiting for the answer. Then, December 14th, a fraud alert from my credit card company. Attempted charge of $5,000 at Saks Fifth Avenue. My emergency card. The one I'd given Chris 2 years ago for absolute emergencies and completely forgotten he still had the number for. He had tried to steal from me. That was the moment the last trace of guilt disappeared. I called the bank, reported it stolen, had it canceled. Then I called Dana and told her to move fast. File everything. Christmas Eve arrived cold and sharp. I sat parked down the street from Chris's house in my Honda, 2 gifts in the back seat, a professional art set for Isla, a coding kit for Finn. I wasn't going to let his ego rob those kids of their aunt. The plan was simple: drop the gifts, text Chris, leave. But as I watched, a black town car pulled up. Woman in an emerald coat. Celeste. Then a Tesla. The investors. Every window of the house blazed gold. Silhouettes moved inside with wine glasses. It looked perfect. It looked like everything I had been paying for. I grabbed the gifts and got out. My boots crunched on the frozen pavement. I passed Julia's Lexus. She tried to hide it in the garage, but the party guests had taken the driveway, forcing it back out. I reached the front door and raised my hand to knock. It swung open before I could. Chris. Velvet tuxedo jacket. Face falling the second he saw me. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, stepping out. "Dropping off gifts for the kids." "That's it." "Who is it?" "Chris." Sharp voice from inside. "Celeste." He panicked. Couldn't make a scene. So he forced a smile, grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt, and pulled me into the foyer. "Smile and leave," he whispered. "Don't you dare embarrass me." The living room went quiet. 15 people turned to look at me, jeans, wool coat, just in from the cold. Clearly not a socialite. Julia appeared with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, eyes going straight to my boots, then to the white rug. "We weren't expecting you." "I was just leaving," I said. "Dropping these off for the kids." "Wait." Celeste stepped forward, champagne glass in hand, studying me with sharp eyes. "Maeve, as in Maeve Sinclair?" Chris laughed nervously. "Yes, my little sister. She's in between things right now, struggling a bit. We try to help her out where we can." Celeste ignored him completely. Walked straight to me. "You're the ghostwriter. You structured the Horizon memoir. And the Tech Tiara piece." The room went still. "My boss tried to hire you last year," she said, professional respect fully replacing social politeness. "He said your waiting list was 6 months. 8 months now," I said. "Nice to meet you, Celeste." Chris's color drained. I think you're mistaken. Maeve relies on us for Chris." My voice was calm. Clear. "Let's stop pretending." I reached into my bag and pulled out the legal packet Dana had drafted. Walked to the side table, right next to the investors, and set it down with a deliberate thud. "That is a formal demand for repayment of the $150,000 I've loaned my brother since 2021. Including the Whitmore prep tuition he told everyone he covered with his bonuses. And the Lexus lease outside. I canceled all of it 3 weeks ago, because he told me I didn't fit his aesthetic." "You're lying," Chris screamed, lunging forward. The taller investor stepped smoothly in front of him. "Let her finish." "I canceled the payments," I said, looking directly at Chris, "because you called me a loser while I was recovering from surgery. Alone. In my sweatpants. In my Honda. You were right that I don't fit your image. I pay my own bills. That doesn't fit here at all." Then the room lit up in orange and yellow. Strobing. Pulsing. From the bay window. Everyone turned. A tow truck had backed into the driveway. The flashing lights bounced off the snow and washed across the perfect Christmas tree. The driver walked up to the still open door and knocked on the glass. "Looking for a Julia, order for repossession on a 2021 Lexus. Key or hook, your choice." The silence was absolute. Julia dropped the tray. Ceramic shattered. Shrimp cocktails scattered across the white rug. Celeste looked at the window, then at the demand letter, then at Chris. Her expression wasn't angry. It was worse than that. It was pitying. "I think we should go," she said quietly. "Wait," Chris grabbed the investor's sleeve. "It's a misunderstanding. Maeve set this up." The investor peeled Chris's hand off his jacket like it was something unpleasant. "The only error here, Chris, was assuming we wouldn't do our due diligence. We already knew about your LLC filing status. We just wanted to see if you'd be honest. A pause. Clearly, honesty isn't your strong suit. They walked out. Both of them. Over the shrimp cocktail. Past Chris. Into the cold. The rest of the guests followed, pulling on coats, suddenly very interested in being somewhere else. Chris turned to me. Small. Aged. The velvet jacket looked like a costume now. You ruined it, he whispered, tears on his face. You ruined everything. No, Chris, I said, buttoning my coat. I just turned the lights on. I didn't stay to watch the car get towed. I walked out to my Honda, sat in the driver's seat, and just breathed. For the first time in years, the weight was gone. I drove home. Made hot chocolate. Watched a movie. I spent Christmas Day completely alone. It was the most peaceful holiday I'd ever had. The house of cards fell completely after that. Without my funding and no investors, Chris couldn't hold the mortgage. They listed the house in January. After paying off the bank and the liens, including mine, they walked away with almost nothing. Stratford Capital Group died quietly. Julia took the kids to her parents' place in Connecticut. Chris moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment and got a real job, mid-level account manager selling HVAC systems. Not a CEO. Not a visionary. Just a guy with a salary and a commute. I didn't speak to either of them for 3 months. I needed that distance to fully process it, not just his cruelty at Christmas, but 3 years of being used while calling it family. In April, I got a text from Finn. Can you come to my soccer game? Dad says he can't make it. I went. I sat on the bleachers of a public school field and watched my nephew tear around in the mud. No Whitmore prep crest anymore. He looked scruffier. He also looked lighter, like a kid instead of a prop. When the whistle blew, he sprinted straight to me and crashed into a hug that got mud all over my coat. I didn't care. Dad says you're rich, he said, pulling back. Is that true? I'm comfortable, Finn. Because I work hard and I don't buy things I don't need. Isla was sitting in the grass nearby, drawing in the sketchbook I'd sent her. Without looking up, he says he's sorry. He says he was stupid. I looked up. Chris was standing by the parking lot fence in a windbreaker and khakis. Tired. A little heavier. Hair thinning. Not the golden boy anymore, just a guy, living in reality for maybe the first time. He saw me looking and raised a slow, uncertain hand. I didn't wave back. But I nodded. Once. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Just acknowledgement that he was still there. Still trying. Still showing up to the muddy public school field even when he'd missed the game. I turned back to the kids. Ice cream? My treat. Yes, they screamed together. And as we walked toward my Honda, reliable, paid off, absolutely fine, I thought about everything Chris had said. About winners and losers. About people who level up and people who stay stagnant. Standing there with mud on my coat and Isla's hand in mine, mortgage paid, conscience clear, I finally saw it plain. I was never the loser in this story. I never needed an audience to feel valuable. Never needed a velvet jacket or a catered party to know what I was worth. I had built something real, quietly, without asking anyone to notice. Chris had spent years performing success. I had just been living it. And that was the best aesthetic of all. Thanks for listening, and if this story hit home, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about people who stop shrinking themselves to make others feel bigger. The most powerful thing you can do is quietly become everything they said you'd never be.